another EMDR training to tell you what the manual says. You need someone who can help you make sense of how it actually works in the room. That's why I invited EMDR consultant Katie Grant to join me for this super important conversation where we get into the questions that EMDR therapists ask most often, from how to know when a client is actually ready for reprocessing to what enough preparation actually looks like. We also talk about how to navigate those moments when you're sitting in session thinking, is this still EMDR or have I gone off track? Katie brings the kind of grounded, client centered wisdom that really only comes from years of doing this work, and she does not sugarcoat that shit. We talk about the gray areas that come with complex trauma, how to work safely with dissociation, and why trusting your client's system and your own matters way more than following any protocol perfectly. Oh, and real quick, if you don't know me yet, I'm Jenny Hughes, trauma psychologist and founder of the Brave Trauma Therapist Collective. And I host these conversations because support for trauma therapists shouldn't stop at licensure. My hope is that this episode gives you a little bit more clarity, a little more confidence, and a reminder that you are not supposed to have it all figured out. You are supposed to keep being human while you learn. Hi, welcome Katie Grant. She is an LCPC and an approved EMDR consultant. See, I already tripped up and we're keeping it. And I'm just so glad to have you here on the channel so that we can talk more about EMDR, consultation, and answer some of those most common questions that you get. But first, can you tell everyone a little bit more about you as a human, you and your work, all of the above?
Yes, absolutely. I am actually licensed in 4 states right now. So Illinois is the LCPC, and then I'm also licensed in Iowa, where I live,
Mhm.
Wisconsin, and Indiana, which I just had somebody move there. I'm not even seeing them anymore, so I'll probably let that go. But in case anybody from Indiana is listening and needs therapy, feel free to call me. I can see you
Right.
virtually. But yeah, I've been in solo private practice. Since I went to private practice, it's just been me and sometimes somebody helping me with billing or office stuff. And I closed my longtime office last year to move to Wisconsin, hence that license. And that just didn't pan out. So I moved back last month to my hometown in Iowa, which is a border town with Illinois. The Mississippi River divides them.
Mhm.
And I had to decide, like, am I going to go back to Illinois where I had my practice? Or do I want to set a new office up in Iowa? And quite frankly, like, if I didn't live on a family um, property like that my grandfather literally built, I would have probably moved to Illinois personally a long
Mhm.
time ago. So the politics are very different. People probably, may understand that Illinois is very liberal, Iowa is very right wing
Yep.
conservative, and I was very tempted to set up in Illinois again, just because it's a different feel. There are different
Yeah.
protections. There's a different guidance from the law. But I decided to set up in Iowa. And it's because I think there are, like some of my clients now, many people in Iowa that don't have the luxury of moving, but
Right.
also really need support for the stuff I work with, which is largely LGBTQ things, transgender issues,
Yep.
etc. So, yeah, I set up in Davenport, Iowa, and I'm still like unpacking, but it's exciting to have a new space and be able to kind of set it up in an optimal way for what I do.
Mm. And I mean, I'm really fortunate that I have gotten to know you through Brave. And so thinking about the intentionality behind setting up your practice this time, I'm sure there's been a lot that's gone into that. Do you want to share some of it?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things is that I don't take insurance anymore, which is pretty, I think, rare in my community. Grand majority
Mhm.
of the providers do. But I made a big decision mostly because of all the stress that it put on me. And also because it's just such a broken system and doesn't really serve the clients or patients well either. I just decided to step out of it and stop participating in it. And it's been an interesting transition, but definitely so much less stress. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
So I made sure that I had plenty of room for groups because I really love doing group work. And I think it's going to be great. Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. I know what a journey it's been and also what it means to be back there for you.
Yeah, it feels really good.
Yeah. So, how long have you been an approved EMDR consultant?
So that just started in January.
Okay.
I was a CIT for a couple of years, I think. First working under somebody in the lineage of Andrew Leeds, and then switching over to Amy Wagner in the Creative Mindfulness Network. And she was just a wonderful mentor and so supportive. So it's hard to find consultees as a CIT, even though you're offering them for practically free. So, it takes a while to get the experience needed to get the approval, but that did go through this January. So this entire year, I've been an approved consultant.
That's so wonderful. I'm so excited for you. So you've been doing the consultation stuff essentially for almost 3 years now. So what are some of the most common questions that you get?
The biggest questions tend to be around like how to know someone is ready for reprocessing phases. Right. So there's widely varying opinions about this, and more so about how long the preparation phase should take.
So for anyone who's not an EMDR therapist, can you just quickly say what the phases are?
Yeah, absolutely. So phase 1 is like history taking and treatment planning. Phase 2 is preparation. Phase 3 is a very brief. This is one of the things I think that's such a misunderstanding sometimes of new trainees. Like the phases are not equal in length, right? So phase 2 could take anywhere from, one session to 10 years.
Yeah.
And phase 3 generally takes like 1 to 4 minutes.
Right, exactly.
It's done well, right? So phase 3 is just getting a client's brain activated. It's called assessment, and that's why we're kind of measuring how much disturbance there is. And then phase 4 is the meaty part begins, the reprocessing, where the eye movements or the
So when
other.
people think they're actually doing EMDR,
Yes,
even though
that's
they've
what
been
most
doing
people call.
EMDR the whole time.
Right, exactly. And so that's the scariest part for new trainees, because it is very kind of unpredictable and so individually variable, and they just have not had enough experience with it to like be able to know what might happen. So they get very anxious about going into that part. And then once they do it a few times, it's like, okay, yeah, this is just what, a little different but version of what I learned in training. But anyway, so phase 4 is reprocessing the memory. Phase 5 is some more reprocessing around the beliefs, the negative and positive beliefs that we hold related to the memory. Phase 6 is the body scan, which still there can be some reprocessing in that phase. Phase 7 is closure, which happens every session, just making sure people are kind of deactivated, so to speak, enough to live in the world again. And then phase 8 is something. I can't think of the word. Where we're checking in at the beginning of the next session. Reevaluation. Is that
Yes,
it?
I couldn't think of the word either as you were saying it. So that's why I wasn't chiming in, because I was like, shit, what is the word?
We don't tend to say the names of the phases very often. So reassessment, and just seeing how the impact was and what happened between sessions that might be related to the work that we did. So to go back to where we started with this, the question I often get is, how do I know when someone's had enough phase 2 preparation to go into the reprocessing phases? And it's not a simple answer either, right? There are some kind of general things that you want everyone agrees upon, right? The person shouldn't be in like for standard protocol that we teach in the basic training. The person shouldn't be in like a chaotic ongoing traumatic situation, right? There are some other protocols under advanced protocols under EMDR that are meant for that, but doing standard protocol, you want someone to have relative stability outside of therapy to kind of hold them, you know, while they're unzipping stuff inside their brain. And you want them to have enough tools to be able to manage any, you know, extreme dysregulation that might come up in session. That's what we work on in the preparation phases. Right. You want them to basically have dipped their toe in and known that they haven't completely fallen apart. So a little bit of testing out, right, on lighter things. And those are kind of the biggies. But some people will say preparation is really unnecessary for the grand majority of clients. I disagree with that.
Yeah.
But some people will not even teach any kind of resources or work with any kind of, because they just think that the healing happens in the reprocessing phases, and the longer we wait to get to that, the more we're just spinning our wheels and letting the client suffer. So kind of the idea of just going straight to the heart of the underlying cause of the symptoms and, you know, deal with the fallout later. And then, you know, the other end of the continuum are trainers and consultants, still tripping over that word, that that believe that preparation is not only essential, but for a lot of people with complex trauma really needs to be lengthy. And that's particularly true, I think, for, the more severe ends of the traumatic symptom continuum.
So where do you land on that spectrum?
I land somewhere in the middle. You know, I'm really a big fan of working with the client in front of you rather than any kind of generality or stereotypes. So I lean more towards the more preparation part, and I'd like to tell a little story about why, if you don't mind. So the reason that I got trained in EMDR at all was that I had a client who was referred to me for an adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse group I was running. And the group went great, but the other participants were feeling improvement and you know, like getting better objectively and subjectively, feeling better. And this particular person was getting worse. And so, you know, she would kind of talk some in the group about her experiences with her individual therapist, who was doing EMDR therapy. I'll put that in quotes. And she would tell me that after a session, she would have to sit in the parking lot sometimes for 4 hours before she felt like in her body enough to drive, safe enough to drive. Yeah. And I said, please tell your therapist this. She needs to know this, because I didn't know anything about EMDR, but I did know trauma therapy in general. And I knew that we are responsible for making sure our clients grown up again when they're walking out the door. Right. Yep. So I had a feeling that her therapist had no idea that she was leaving this dysregulated. And so I said, please talk to her about this. And the next time she came back, she said, oh, now we're doing something called ego state therapy. And I'm like, what's that? Of course, now it's something I do every session pretty much. But so anyway, she continued to get worse. And she decided to stop with my support. She decided to stop the EMDR therapy and transfer her individual care over to me. And I could see that she was basically like having traumatic effects from her sessions, right? Like it wasn't just re-victimization. It was like new victimization mixed in. And so I was just really inspired to get trained. And what I discovered, and she was kind of laughing, oh, you didn't already know, was that she had undiagnosed DID. I mean, she didn't call it that. She didn't expect me to know that, but that she had these really separate parts of herself that would come out at different times. And, yeah, that's really important to know when you're working with EMDR therapy.
Absolutely.
Like, in the manual, Francine Shapiro recommends as part of standard protocol to give some kind of dissociation screening before you proceed. But even that sometimes can miss things because us dissociative folks are pretty good at hiding it.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned so much after that. And I didn't just learn how to help her undo her EMDR trauma. I learned how to help her use EMDR to heal. And it's just a really beautiful thing to look back on. And I'm so grateful to her for having to go through that experience to motivate me to get trained.
Well, and you're glowing as you talk about this outcome, right? And so even though this dear client had to go through all of that, the fact that she found you and you two were able to do this work together, it's such a huge shift for her life and for yours.
Yeah. Yeah. And I saw her go from like the first session we had, she tried to explain her history of trauma and it was just so jumbled and like, I didn't even comprehend where she was at in the timeline at any given point. Right. And at the end, she was able to really like just describe it in such a beautiful, continuous way. She's still working on her journey. But yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool to use.
I bet that's another question that you get a lot is about the target sequencing and like, how do you know where to start? Especially, I mean, single incident traumas are just really not a thing. Right. And so like, can we all just call a thing and say, we're all working with the spectrum of complex trauma. Like,
right. Exactly.
And so then we're like, but wait, we're supposed to figure out which one is the worst and then which one is not the worst. And then what do I do with that information? And what if I pick the wrong one? So what do you say to all of that?
Yes, it feels so crucial. And even before getting to that, like figuring out what the right negative belief to work with.
Oh my God, I know, right?
That's what was hardest for me.
Did you pick it from the list?
But I have all of them.
I know.
And all of my traumatic memories are connected to all of them. Like, how do you map that? So again, the answer to that question is carefully and individually and with a lot of client choice and direction. I mean, I am a client-centered therapist at heart, although I fully believe in EMDR therapy and I'm always thinking from that adaptive information processing lens. I fully feel that, especially with trauma work, focused work, that the client needs to have more control than you do.
Yep.
Right. They need to really. So this particular client, I'm remembering my wonderful consultant, as I was working towards being certified, suggested we have her literally make a stop sign. Part of the preparation is figuring out how the client's going to tell you if they need to stop because they're overwhelmed. And so she made a stop sign, like we might do with children. And like on the front, it says stop. And on the back, she had some positive affirmations. Cool. Like, I mean, they weren't even affirmations. They were like, you are in, whatever year it was. And Katie is a safe person for you. And, like it was so helpful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And we certainly have never gotten to a touchstone memory with her. I mean, she had so much trauma.
Is that even necessary?
I don't think so. I think it's helpful for people who can tolerate it, but you may not get there for years with someone that has a lot of, personality dissociation.
But that's also the beauty of the adaptive information processing model is that we know, and when we can lean into and trust the process, that the work done on any memory is going to generalize, is going to move throughout the system and have such positive healing effects. And I love too how one of the first things that stuck in my brain when I got trained in EMDR was just like your body heals a cut on your hand, your brain can heal too. Like, why the hell would we think that it couldn't heal? Yeah. Well, maybe because we thought it wasn't even part of our body, but that's a different topic.
Exactly.
And so trusting that no matter what you're doing, is going to have an effect on the client and on the work in their life.
Yeah. And it really is my favorite thing to say is I trust your brain.
Yes.
This is a framework that allows your brain to figure out where it needs to go without us getting in the way.
Yep.
If we can just allow it to do that and support it with the context, then you get a lot of work done. Yeah.
Yep. Is there one last kind of quick fire question that comes up a lot?
I think that the rest of it always comes down to what cognitive interweaves to use with what. Or, that might be about the same with and it depends on what format they're getting their training in. Is this able to be done virtually? I know a lot of consultees that got trained before the pandemic kind of just never tried EMDR online.
Yeah.
And I mean, it works great. It works even better for some people online.
I've only ever done it virtually. I've never done EMDR in person.
Yeah. I mean, so many people like that because most people are getting trained online these days.
Yep.
Yeah. So you may have the opposite feeling like, I don't know how I would do this in person.
I know. I'm like, wait, I've literally never done this. I don't have a light bar. I just turn it on a little ball on my screen and then share it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And the ones that you can really customize are kind of fun to play with.
I know they are.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just really excited about helping people learn how to do this in a way that is safe for their clients and effective for their clients, and they feel confident enough to go forth even with all of the uncertainty and the feeling of I don't know what I'm doing. Just follow the steps, and if you do it so many times, it becomes just second nature.
But also just the therapeutic relationship is so unique. The relationships that we build with our consultants, with our supervisors, our colleagues, those are just as important. And so finding a consultant that you feel connected with, that you feel safe with is so important. And I'm just glad that people are going to get to have a small taste of what it's like to work with you, the joy that you bring to this work, the expertise, and especially the client-centered approach. Because one of my favorite things to say to my clients is you are in charge. You get to decide to do this or to do that. And at any point, right, I'm reminding them you are in charge. And that sounds like exactly the approach that you're taking too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe in your brain. I know you can do this. And if you don't feel ready, we need to listen to the part of you that doesn't feel ready and figure out what it needs to.
Exactly. And we're going to link to all your stuff in the description, but where can people find out more about working with you?
Yes. So I probably should have asked if you have a sensor.
You can say all the cuss words that you want because I know what your website is.
So yes, my consultation and training website is justanotherfuckinggrowthopportunity.com, all spelled out, no spaces, but a shorter way to type it is It's Jafgo, ITSGAFGO.com. That will also get you to the same website. It's got all of my groups on there. My speaking engagements are listed. And it links also to my therapy website if you're curious about how I approach that stuff too. Yeah.
Awesome. And we will link to that here so people can just click it, but also typing it in. It's always fun when you get to write fuck in the URL bar, right?
This is for my job, right? If you're in a government agency, I don't know if it will even allow you to come to my website. So you might need that. It's Jeffco. Funny.
Well, thank you, so Katie. Much, this has been such an incredible conversation. And I know we already have a part 2 in mind. So people can stay tuned for that whenever we are able to schedule it.
I'll be back.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.